Hi everyone, hope you're well. I'm going to take you through 5 little tips, hints, hacks, whatever you call them, on owning a guitar, maintaining a guitar, and also little things that can help you perhaps when you're performing and in a hurry. You know, you might want to just get used to tuning very quickly, or you might have problems with strings going out of tune. So we'll take a look at that. So let's take a look at number 1 now, shall we? And number 1 actually focuses on being able to tune the guitar from just hearing one note. So let's just say that we're playing in an orchestra, playing with our friends, and we forgot a tuner. Nobody's got a tuner, or you might want to tune maybe it's just to a certain instrument in the room. For example, you might have a piano in a room that sounds great but isn't actually at the right frequency. And fair enough, you could just play it. You guys asked to play each note and tune to that, but it might be busy, or you might want to practice just tuning the guitar to itself. So say they give you the bottom E, so that's that low E note. And what actually you'll find is that the interval between that E note and then the next string down is on the 5th fret here. So actually, when we play the A string open, the bottom E, if we place our finger on the 5th fret, you hear that? They're both the same note. So you can actually, so say I'll put my A out of tune, for example, okay, so got that nasty note there, but if I play a 5th fret on the E, that gives us that A note. And then you see how it's flat? So I'll play that E with which we've fretted, and there's a note, and I can tune that up. You hear that there? There we go. So that's me getting that in tune. And then we do the same for the string underneath. I'll flatten that, see? And then the D, so we know that the D string is slightly flat. And I'll play 5th fret on the A string. And then I can tune them up. And if you play them together, you'll get to a point where they meet. Same goes for the G and the D. We tune that up. Now the B string is slightly flat, because if we think of the interval going up from the G string, from the D goes D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, and then you've got the G there. G, great, so that's 5. So G, G sharp, A sharp, B. So your B is actually 4th fret. So that's the only one that is actually 4th fret. So if you want to find that B note, play 4th fret on the G string when it's in tune. And then 5th fret there. On the E, on the B, gets you the E string. Here you go. And I hope that helps getting your guitar in tune with itself. Thanks. Let's move on. Look at tip number 2 now. So tip number 2, I'm going to look at tuning and why your guitar might be going out of tune with fresh new strings on. And when basically, I won't do a full restring in this lesson because it can be quite a lengthy thing. But basically, when we've just, say for example, I've just restrung this, I've put all the fresh strings on and I've tuned them up. Now what you might actually find, as soon as you play them, all of a sudden it sounds out of tune, and you've gone through, you've just tuned it, but yeah, it's totally out of tune. Now what's basically happened is the strings are kind of like an elastic band, and they will immediately stretch and then slacken off, because there's that tension almost needs to build in them. So what we can do, say for example we've just done this E string, bottom E, we can actually, believe it or not, just give them a little tug. Okay, just go along the fingerboard like that and just lift up underneath, okay? If you put new strings on, you might want to just make sure your hands are really clean, or you might want to just get like a bit of cloth just over your fingers. Stops grease, stops salt getting on them, because corrosion is a string's kind of worst enemy. It's the reason why they snap, basically. So yeah, and what will happen is you'll find that you'll go and play that string after you've given it a little stretch. And remember, when we're stretching, we don't need to pull it right up. We just give them basically a little tug, till you feel that point of resistance. So even on these old strings, that brings a bit of a stretch out. And that will just help get them properly stretched. So when you go to tune it, it will hold the tuning a bit more. Okay, now we're going to focus again on step 3. Hint number 3, sorry, just on kind of why your strings might be going out of tune if you've had them on for a while, okay? So yeah, say you've had your strings on for a few weeks and they're still kind of a bit unstable. Now, a few factors could be causing this. The guitar could be not set up properly, and by that it means that there's a kind of certain balance in the kind of profile of the neck. It's called the action, which is the height, and you also have the relief, which is the bowing of the neck. Now, a lot of guitars, apart from classical guitars, will have what's called a truss rod in there, and that kind of adjusts the bowing to give you the right kind of clearance between these strings to make sure that what you call the intonation, which is essentially makes sure that every fret is perfectly in tune. Now, you need to make sure that intonation is correct. But let's say that's fine, and you've had the guitar set up recently. What could actually be causing the strings to go out of tune? And if they're not too old, then we can look at what you kind of get on the nut here, which is kind of, I suppose it's considered snagging, where what happens is as you tune the guitar, you might think you've got it in tune, and it might be in tune, but what's actually happened is that the string, as it's been pulled through the nut here, is actually snagging and catching. So once you start playing, that string will move a little bit and it will cause the guitar to go out of tune a bit. So you can actually get proper kind of lubricants, and you can get in and really clean out the nut, which probably would be recommended every few string changes or so. But actually, graphite from a pencil can be your friend here, either before a string change or just even if you've got the strings on the guitar, you just put the pencil in a little groove there, just a little bit. You don't want to make a mess here, but graphite is really good lubricant for things like the strings, and you'll find that the string, even though it sounds counterintuitive, will actually move more, and because of that, it stops snagging as much. So yeah, that's another one. Right, let's take a look at the next hint. So we get to the problem of snapping strings. I don't know if any of you have ever had a string snap yet, but it can be quite a scary thing when it first happens. Out of the blue, you might be just picking up the guitar for the first time in a couple of weeks, or you might be just midway through a gig, your first gig, and all of a sudden, twang, string goes off, guitar goes out of tune. So yeah, that happens, and it will happen. It's something you can't really avoid. I said before that corrosion is one of the worst things for guitars, and that's sadly the case. So wiping down your strings, or even just getting a cloth and just if you've played your guitar for a good hour, your hands will, even if you're not a sweaty person, your hands will still have salt and sweat on them and dirt, and this can really get into the strings and damage them and cause them to corrode. You don't notice it at first, but you can see on some strings where, especially if they're quite old, exactly where people play simply from the marks on the strings. Why they haven't snapped, it depends, because some people buy good strings that last much longer, some people just have a very well set up guitar. But one of the reasons why this can happen is that the position kind of where you consider the bridge on the guitar or the nut can actually have too much of an angle, or there can be something sharp in there, or your technique might be that you play quite close to the bridge, and where that string snaps is a good indication of where the issue is. Because I play a lot of bluegrass music, just get a plectrum out, I'm often playing quite close to the bridge here, so and I get a lot of snaps down here, especially on my G and my D strings, because they're kind of the ones I'm picking a lot, and they're thin enough to snap, but they've got a lot of tension on them still. So that's kind of a thing I look at as well, and I've often had a lot of work done on this what you call the saddle here and the bridge. So just basically because on my main gigging guitar, the angle's quite strong on there, so I've had that filed down a little bit. So if it's snapping down there, maybe take a look, take it to the shop, just get it seen to, because it could be that. We'll look at maybe some technique things as well, just in case you maybe digging in a bit too much, or using the wrong plectrum for that. We'll look at that at a later date. And again, the same up the nut, you might have found that the angle's too strong, or there's something there. So where it snaps is a good indication. So if you take it into a shop and they don't ask you, it might be worth telling them where the strings are snapping. Excellent. Right, let's move on. Have another look at another tip. So for my final tip, we're going to switch to my electric guitar here, and we're going to take a look at the strap buttons on here. So I'm going to look at two things here. Firstly, there's a little screw in there. Most guitars with these strap buttons, I've got one there, and I've got one here on the back of the guitar, have got a little screw in them. Can you see that? A little Phillips head. I'll tap on my screen so it focuses. Yeah, there's a little Phillips head screw in there. Just simply tighten them up, okay? Because even if you just tighten them a little bit, and just to the point where you know the screwdriver starts getting a bit harder to turn, that'll be enough to keep it going. The last thing you want is those screws falling out mid-gig. You're going for a great solo, and then plonk, the guitar goes down. Don't want that at all. And another, fortunately that's never happened to me, although I have had some drops before with the guitar. You can actually see there's a little ding here, but that's just part of the guitar. Actually, that happened in Hexham. But another thing I've got on is this red kind of cap here. Now, basically, this will come off. And actually, what that is from one of those push bottle lids you get on glass bottles, often beer bottles, but you can get them on water bottles as well. And actually, these are such a guitar saver. I wouldn't say lifesaver, but guitar saver, in the sense that they do the job of, you might have heard of a strap lock before, but basically that means that your strap doesn't do that mid-gig, which is quite easy to do, because you've just all it has to do is you have your strap buckle twisted without you knowing it, you're turning around on stage, and it comes off so easily. So you can actually get proper strap locks which fit over, which basically you need a screwdriver to release. And that isn't always ideal. What you want is something like this. Simple as, Fender have done their own versions of them now, but you can just get them from kind of wholesalers or somebody, you know, maybe it's a home brew shop, and they just fit over the strap button like this, and, you know, make sure that it's fully gone round all of the side of that. Maybe use a plectrum to just poke it down there, and trust me, it makes it so much harder to get that strap off. It will save your guitar. So, yeah, I hope those have been very helpful tips. Any other questions, maintenance-wise, or anything about the guitar setups or anything like that, just give me a shout. I'll be happy to help. I will do a video on restringing at some point, because it can be quite a daunting thing, but trust me, it's something that once you've done it a couple of times and you've got your technique down, you will be absolutely fine with that. Anyways, happy guitar playing, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Take care now. Thanks. Bye-bye.